back to our podcast, video podcast. I'm Remo Tlale, and I'm here with the great Uwe Abner. I'm picking up where I left off.
Yes,
but
no,
we're
I
gonna keep
realize.
doing this. It has been a while, but it's
It
very
has
exciting
indeed.
to be able to be back together and having these discussions around a really exciting series, in my opinion. And so, if you don't mind giving us a brief overview of the series to start, and then we'll dive in.
Brief overview is obviously image, be the you that God wants you to be. And I think it's while we go through this, the big picture is what we need to keep in mind. In other words, that we're created in His image to be able to build flourishing communities all over the world, do our part where we can, who we are. And then obviously, what does this flourishing community look like? Love God, love one another. But what does that mean for me as a person? And the way that God has wired me, experiences allowed me to be, personality, the whole mixture of things, but that I'm not trying to be you, but that I am being and I want to be sensitive to saying these words, the best version of me.
Sure.
So even in that, the best version of me. So what is the best version of me? Not your best version of me.
Sure. Yeah.
So that takes all the components
Yeah.
into play in me being the best version of me. And therefore, image the you that God wants you to be as the role that you play, I play, our little role that we play in the garden and building it.
Fantastic. All right. I thought we should start there because we're going to use and talk about that very ugly term that you used on Sunday.
Yes.
The one that we all don't appreciate very much.
No, sure.
But it's super important in the ability for us to be able to become the best version that we can be. Because, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but self-awareness.
Yes.
Can you please re-give us that definition?
Okay, self-awareness, that's a big definition. It's short, but big and hurtful. So self-knowledge that leads to an awareness of how my personality affects others. So I have self-knowledge, I have knowledge about myself, and because of my knowledge of myself, it leads to, because I know who I am, it leads to an awareness for me of who this package,
Sure.
how this package affects others. And that's for everybody. Obviously, our natural tendency, and I didn't mention this on Sunday, I think our natural tendency would be that we are thinking now of loud and proud.
Sure.
And it's the loud and proud needs to be self-aware. But the quiet or whatever also needs to be, as we go through the personality types, everyone needs to be self-aware.
Yeah.
And then the self-awareness only comes into play when I am aware of that it affects and therefore do something about it.
Sure.
Monitor and self-regulate is what we spoke about. So because I'm self-aware, I catch myself in the moment in my interaction with you. I monitor, self-regulate so that I move towards you with a greater sense of love and patience and kindness
Okay.
and consciousness of what's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's very natural.
Sure.
Because we say how my personality, and we obviously got into that as well, so what personality is another horrible word.
Sure.
How my personality, my habitual and predictable, and I think it hurts because if you think of it, I could see in the faces of people on Sunday that were taking strain,
Sure.
and in essence, I said nothing. I mean, I'm not talking about your personality.
Yeah. You're just defining what personality
I'm just
is.
defining what personality
Yeah.
is. But as you sit there, and if you have any form of self-awareness and humility, as I mentioned on Sunday as well, when you look in a rearview mirror, you can see
Yeah.
that there is habitual, predictable ways of thinking, acting, feeling, and doing that has gotten you into trouble again and again. Like either it work serves you or defeats you. And I would unfortunately have to say that if I look historically, I can see more defeat than service
Sure.
in it.
Yeah.
And I think that is why it's so hurtful. And then, I mean, everything now plays into each other. Then denial obviously comes in because I don't want to go there.
Okay, before we get to denial, because I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me was the idea that it's predictable and habitual.
It's horrible.
Like it just like that. Those words. I think that's what struck me.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, my personality affects other people. I know that.
Yeah, sure.
But the fact that it's like the last 28 years. Okay, maybe let's say let me be gracious and say the last 20 years, because until 8 years old, I know what I know. But it's like it's just been pretty much the same tape over and over and over again, which I think is the hard part to wrestle with, which then leads us to this discomfort or lack of desire to really tackle this idea of self-awareness. So, which leads us to denial. That's ultimately where it takes us. So, what's your definition for denial? Just very quickly.
Let me just take a step back and say, okay, so habitual and predictable. What you have to remember is that other people also know that it's habitual and predictable of you.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
so they are aware of your habitual and predictable ways of thinking, acting, feeling,
Sure.
doing. So
Sure.
when they invite you into a conversation or into something that the two of you need to interact, or you and them need to interact, they know, consciously, subconsciously, they know
Wow.
how you're gonna predictably and habitually behave
Yeah.
and think about what's going on here.
Sure.
Where denial comes in is denial is the idea that I don't want to pay attention to that which I know. So it's not like I don't know it. I
Yeah.
know it, but either again consciously or subconsciously, I'm saying I'm not paying attention. I don't want to go there because it's too hurtful to go there, or too messy to go there.
Sure.
But what I don't realize is that although I'm not going there, other people are for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
the fact that I'm denying it, the fact that I'm pretending like it's not there, doesn't mean that I'm not trying to forget it, that other people are like, oh, he's forgotten it, we'll forget it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. People are still kind of avoiding you on certain topics because they know this is going to go that way.
Exactly, yeah.
Sure.
Asking you certain questions as a spouse, as a friend. I know if I ask this, if I ask him this way, if I ask it at this time, he or she's going to act in this way, think this way, feel this way.
Wow.
So let me rather not go there.
Wow. And that resonates deeply as well because we're all in relationships around different topics and different things. And I'm thinking of very simple topics, but there's guys I know who, if I want to have a deep, long-winded conversation about football, Formula One, whatever it is, I just have to I don't even have to ask a question. I just throw out a name, like Lewis Hamilton. And then it's like the next 30 minutes of my life is engulfed in this but that's their predictable, habitual,
Yeah.
way of doing things. And so
Are
I
you
know that.
referring to me?
No. No, there's other things that get you going, but Formula One is in there. But anyway,
Yeah, okay.
But it's interesting to me.
I'm not trying to monitor and self-regulate.
No, please don't. I actually enjoy the conversation.
Yes.
But it's interesting to me that we start at self-awareness, and yet what most people end up pursuing rather is others' awareness.
Totally.
Like, I'd much rather know what's happening with Werner than be clear on what is wrong with Remo. And not because I don't know, like you said, which I think is scary to me, is not that I don't know that these are my issues.
You know it.
I rather just fight to gloss over
Yes.
these issues, which is incredibly challenging in and of itself.
Or minimize them while one day I pay attention to it, or we're all just people, what.
Yes, yeah.
An interesting question to maybe ask ourselves. No, I don't want to ask this.
I can tell in your face, I'm like, oh no, here we go.
Is someone saying of me, that's just Werner?
Ooh. Unpack that for me.
Yeah.
Like, why?
So in other words, they just watch out for your cable. You're going to entangle yourself, and we don't want a death on the podcast.
Sure.
Is that because of my habitual, predictable ways of thinking, acting, feeling, doing, that is pushing people away from me, that they've gotten so used to my behavior that they're not trying to take it personal. So then they say, oh, don't pay too much attention to it, that's just Werner.
Sure.
That's just Remo.
Yeah.
So in other words, someone that constantly hijacks the mic and takes over the conversation or whatever place you're in at small group or whatever, then you think, oh, there they go again, but then you say, that's just Fred. Okay, someone that doesn't hear you, someone that, again, there's a know-it-all.
Yeah.
Well, there they go. That's just Joe. That's
Yeah.
just Susie. That's
Yeah.
just let's use Mfundo.
Sure.
Okay,
Wow,
because that's happening. There is someone, and I'm sure as I'm saying this right now, there's people that are saying,
That's literally what's happening in my brain.
well, they're not thinking of them. They're thinking of me.
Yes, yeah.
So they're thinking most probably, oh, Van, I hope you're getting it. Finally.
Yeah, because that is just Werner. There
Yeah,
you go,
that's just Werner.
Sure.
And my guess is maybe a good question to ask friends, family is, what is that of you? do they ever feel that they need to say, that's just Remo?
Yeah.
And then why? What is it? What is it that you are doing, or what is it that you're making them feel that's saying it's just Remo?
Sure. We could stop there, if we're honest.
Yeah.
We could stop there. But I do want us to dive into just a brief overview of the tool, underlying tool, emboldened
Yeah.
tool, you know.
Yeah.
A tool that we're using to kind of help us gain a little bit more self-awareness, to help us be able to be more aware of what it is that our personality does to people. It's the Enneagram.
Yes.
And so can you give us a brief, like where does this thing come from? What is it kind of overall? And then we'll dive into the actual picture of it.
Okay, so I'm going to be very brief. There is a bit of a mystery. People trace it back to 4th century Christianity. Some people trace it back to Islam. So one, we don't really know.
Okay.
Two, for me, it doesn't really matter. So I am trying to not, in the series, focus too much on the actual concept of the Enneagram. Enna means 9, and then a gram is a picture graph that explains different connections, and we're not going to go into all of that because we just want to have the goal here is self-awareness, that I can play along better with others,
Sure.
and that my superpower can be used in the church towards building its good. So I'm not,
Okay.
the Enneagram for me is literally just a tool that I think can, we could have called it something else. We
Sure.
could have called it 9 personalities, but then we wouldn't do it justice because we would be copywriting
other people's
other
work.
people's work. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so can you run us through the 9 very quickly?
Okay, so 9 personalities. I'll run them down through quickly, 1 through to 9, and then we'll unpack them on Sundays. So type 1, the perfectionist, improver, or reformer. This is someone who tends to be ethical, dedicated, and reliable.
Okay.
And they are motivated by a desire to live the right way, improve the world, and avoid fault and blame and the lack of improvement of the world.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Two is the helper or nurturing supporter. These are people that are warm, they are caring, they are giving, and they are motivated by a need to be loved and needed, and to avoid acknowledging their own needs in the process. Okay, so you'll see as we go through these futuristically that our motivation tends to be a little bit skewed, where there's a positive and a negative side in the emotion of what it is that we're trying to do.
Sure.
Type 3 is the performer or successful achiever. I know someone that's...
Just keep going through the... There's no need for that.
They are successful, success-orientated, image-conscious, wired for productivity, so doers. They are motivated by a need to be or even appear to be successful and to avoid failure. Okay, so that's what drives.
Denial. That's all that's happening in me. Anyway, continue.
The 4 is the romantic or individualist. They're a colorful bunch. They are creative, sensitive, and has the ability to be pretty moody. They are motivated by a need to want to be understood by people around them. They actually feel content when they experience high level of oversized feelings and emotions, and they want to avoid being ordinary. And again, that drives them. We'll unpack that. 5 is the analytical investigator. They are analytical. They can be detached. They are very consistent and private people. They are motivated by a need to gain knowledge, and I love this one, we'll unpack it, conserve energy.
Sure.
Okay, so they've got very limited energy and they want to take good care of that, and they want to avoid relying on others. The 6 is the faithful guardian or loyalist. Okay, they are committed, practical people. They can be very witty. They are our worst case scenario thinkers, and therefore they're overly prepared. And they are motivated by a fear and need of security. So I'm afraid of what could happen, and therefore I'm overly prepared. And I want to be safe, and therefore I'm overly prepared, and therefore I see all the risk.
Sure.
The 7, they tend to be very joyful and fun people. They are called the enthusiast or the optimistic dreamer. They are fun, spontaneous, adventurous. They are motivated by a need to be happy. So they're doing all of this activity so they can be happy, therefore plan these stimulating experiences, but they actually do it to avoid pain.
Okay.
Okay, and again, this is very broad. I'm not saying this is always the case.
Yeah.
Then there is the passionate protector or challenger. They are people that can be assertive. They can at times be intense, at times maybe be confrontational. Although on the inside, what a lot of people don't know is they're actually softies. They
Is
are
that written there, or did you just add that so that people think you're a softie?
Are you saying I'm eight?
Sorry, continue.
No, it's actually true of me, and if I were to be one, and others, they are actually, it's, and in essence, it's a mask. Okay,
Gotcha.
so they are putting forward, and I remember all these things. It could be consciously, but mostly unconsciously doing these things. They're putting on forward a strong front to protect the vulnerable, soft inside.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get into that in the 8 because I think each number can obviously be misunderstood.
Yes, yeah.
The 9 is the peacemaker or the peaceful accommodator. They are pleasant people, laid back and accommodating. They are motivated by a need to keep peace and merge with others to avoid conflict. Okay, so they want you to be at peace so they can be at peace.
Okay.
Because if you're not at peace, they're not at peace, then they feel out of whack, and then their world is distorted. So those are the 9.
Sure. Interesting stuff. I think, most people watching this, you probably want to rewind, and that's totally cool to just pause, rewind, go back through all of them. But I think there is one action step that would be the most helpful. I'm going to let you encourage people.
Do the assessment. We send it out on the communicator. Do the assessment. It will give you your, like I said on Sunday as well, all of us have all 9 personalities. We lean towards 1 or 2, and we're not going to get into the complexity of it, but you can have a primary one with a wing of another. If you do the assessment, it will give you an idea. That idea, I'll say again, doesn't define you. It doesn't mean that's who you are, and there is no other way, so don't take it too personal. It's just a starting point. And as you start getting that, then you can pay more attention to your own number. You can also buy the book that we send out. It's on Kindle to read more about yourself and others. But the primary idea that we want to do is I want to become self-aware. I want to gain better knowledge of myself, but also a better understanding of you. Because we're in the garden together. And if you and I are going to play along well, I need to understand who I am, what drives me, what effect I have on other people. But I also need to understand what drives you. And if I have an understanding of what drives you, one, I won't take it personal in the way that we interact, and I'll have more grace with you, and I can come alongside you in a better way for us to play well together.
Absolutely, and hopefully have good conversations that once you,
Yes,
as you come to an awareness of yourself and you realize, even if it's just early days of, I didn't even know these numbers existed and this is who I am, let's be in small group, let's be in family group, let's
and
be
talk
chatting about it.
Here's what I see. I think I'm a 2. I think I'm a helper because I can see it here, but the reason I can also see the motivation why I'm helping or that I'm image conscious, I see it here. And as I always say to people, and this came to me years ago when someone did it to me, I've shared it publicly before. I was confessing some sin in my life and character to a group of brothers and feeling very embarrassed about what I was saying. And what I very quickly realized was I was the last one to come to the party. In other words, these guys were not surprised at all by what I was saying. And that was more humbling than anything else, because there was someone where they were like, oh wow, welcome. Also see you. Good for you. So in other words, they didn't do it in a demeaning way at all. I just realized that you might feel embarrassed by certain things that you learn about yourself. It is okay. Let's talk it through.
Amen. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks everybody. Have a good one.